Welcome to Let's Talk Gut Health Today. This is a show where we bring not only our professional insight, but also our personal insights to share with you so you can learn how to address these issues at a deeper level. Today, you're invited to listen, learn, and participate as much as you would like.
This is a weekly show, and we can help to connect the gut, stress, energy, sleep, metabolism in a way that's clear and practical. We invite you every week to be a part of it.
Every week, we will explore the gut-brain connection as it relates to your stress, your nutrition, your movement, your connections, and just about any other aspect of health that you're struggling with. This is a safe, welcoming space for you to be honest and ask us the real life health challenges that you're being faced with.
With the summer months, we felt that we would address the topic of belly fat because nobody wants to have belly fat. And we want to dig deeper as to why people get belly fat, how we can avoid it, and how we can make it less. And some people, it's a struggle with the time of the year being the summertime. People are trying to get into their bathing suits and whatever else they're trying to do. The bottom line is that we thought it would be a great topic for us to explore today.
Absolutely. One of the things that I learned is that belly fat is not just eating less and moving more. That was probably the biggest wake-up calls I remember learning when I first started on this gut health journey. And I'm Terri Rahman, by the way. I'm a holistic gut health coach, and I support people who are interested in working on four pillars of health, which are nourishment, movement, restoration, and connection, and up leveling your life that way.
I'm Dr. Philip Mach, functional medicine health consultant, and I help women to improve their energy, their digestive health, their focus, and optimizing nutrition and lifestyle with targeted supplements when appropriate. The two of us share our experiences with you to guide you to where we need to go.
One of the questions we got in, Dr. Phil, was how come I can't lose weight very easily, even though I seem to be doing all the right things?
That's a fantastic question. Certainly, you can start, and then I can pipe in or add some other stuff. Go ahead, why don't you start?
Sure. One of the things that I found very surprising when I was working as a social worker, high stress job, is that I was noticing everybody was gaining weight around the midsection. It was very fascinating. It wasn't just me. I was 20, 25 pounds heavier than I am today. When I realized that it was more about the stress hormone, it made me very curious. When stress levels go up, cortisol level seems to elevate. It works like the body's just protecting your energies. It just wants to preserve every little thing that it has. It's like, oh, you're being chased by a tiger. We got to keep you in survival mode. So it really is difficult for people who are highly stressed out to lose weight because their body just doesn't want to give. That cortisol levels is way too high.
That's so true from personal experience. I was a physician treating people, giving people pills for ills, and I noticed that I was neglecting my sleep. My stress levels were high, and I was focusing on foods that were not necessarily healthy, consuming caffeine as well as sugar. When you mentioned stress, it's very interesting because I remember there was a 3 or 4 month period where I was actually focused on studying for a very big test that I had to pass. And I was super stressed and I put on about 40 pounds. It's like, wow, I've never done that before. I was at the highest weight I ever was. And I realized that once I finished the exam and I went back and focused on eating healthily and eating the right foods and working out again, the weight came right off. Really amazing that that can happen. And stress can be such a huge part of all of this. And the other thing that's interesting is that if you look at people from pictures like the 1960s and 1970s that are really thin. And then you notice now the trend is that most people are heavier. And a lot of that has to do with the nature of the food that we're eating because more people are eating ultra processed foods, sugar, and other types of chemicals. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that too, don't you, Terry?
Well, always. And you bring back so many different points. When we are stressed, number one thing that I do see happen is a lot of people are not sleeping well. That certainly was true with me. When we go to bed and our mind is still racing, it's not going to help us get a good night's sleep. And a lot of people are just burning the midnight oil. They're just driving to the very end until they crash. They're exhausted. But then they wake up 2, 3 in the morning, can't fall back to sleep, don't know why. And they're fretting about that because they're worried that they're not going to get their 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And then it just keeps them awake and they're ruminating and they'll do a lot of different things. I remember getting up and having some tea or having some cheese or having something to help me try to go back to sleep. One of the things I really encourage my folks to do if they really want to lose weight is to focus in on bringing the cortisol level down and get them to start implementing maybe some deep breathing into their day, taking time for exercise. A lot of people say, well, I don't have time to exercise. And I'm like, well, we need to find a way to make the time because that's going to help you to get rid of some of that energy that your body needs to expend when you get so stressed. We know that movement is actually helpful for when you are stressed out. It sounds counterintuitive, right? To move when you're stressed, but I'm not saying you have to like run a marathon. I'm just saying you gotta move. Maybe taking a walk after meals, for example, would be a great place to start. I could go on and on about diet, but I like you to share whatever comes up for you as I'm talking about this.
I think the cortisol effect is really important. There's so many things that we can do to prioritize sleep. When we get up in the morning, we should really get some sunlight because the sunlight helps to stimulate our morning cortisol, and our nighttime shift is the melatonin, which is our sleepy hormone, turns off. And then the cortisol levels will rise according to different activities. We definitely want to make sure that cortisol level goes down in the evening. One of the ways we can do that is looking at blood sugar stability. The stress also is a part of that, but balancing the sugar throughout the day, eating healthy fats, protein, and fiber in order to stabilize the sugar, which is going to help to maintain our energy. And if we're eating better, like you mentioned, it's going to help our liver process things. If we're eating things that have a lot of sugar and fructose, it's going to make our liver not work well. Blood sugar stability, the health of the liver, and the fact that you're eating good, healthy foods, that's a good start. And movement is so important, as you mentioned before. And so all these things are really important. I think that people are confused because they say, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything right, and I'm still getting this belly fat. What's going on? Maybe you can shed some insight onto that, Terry.
A lot of times when we are stressed, we tend to reach for foods that are easily accessible for energy, right? Those things tend to be very quick and easy foods, like a piece of bread or toast. And we don't think of those things as sugar, but that's how they act in our body. Even this concept of, oh, I had sourdough bread versus just regular bread. I'm like, how many carbs are in that? A lot of people don't think about the breads, pastas, and the rice as turning into sugar in the body. Even if it's just a small amount of something, it is going to spike blood sugar. And anytime you spike that blood sugar, it creates insulin to go throughout your body. Insulin, we have to know, is the fat storage hormone. So anytime we put a refined carbohydrate into our bodies, we're telling the body to store fat. So if you're not burning that off right away, its job is gonna store fat. And when your cortisol is high, that can interfere with the person's ability to lose weight if they're trying to lose weight. So when people are stressed out, they're gonna gain weight quite easily in the belly area.
Yeah, a lot of pearls and things that you were saying as far as the insulin connection. A lot of people who have blood sugar issues or not able to stabilize their blood sugar will tend to have problems with insulin. So it's not really a sugar issue per se. It's really an insulin issue. People have too much insulin. And the funny thing is that when we treat diabetes, we're giving people insulin instead of telling people to eat differently and to stabilize their blood sugar better. It's like an oxymoron when you think about it. We're giving more insulin when they're already not responding to the insulin that their body's already generating. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I think a lot of it is because of the fact that we're eating more unprocessed food that's affecting the liver health and liver fat. And as a result, we're having problems with insulin resistance. And that's a big problem, especially when it gets down to the level of our children. We're noticing this epidemic of gaining weight, insulin resistance, and an increased risk of diabetes and Alzheimer's disease, which they call type 3 diabetes. All these things and chronic illness in general are related to all the things we're talking about, managing stress, not sleeping, and eating ultra high processed foods, too many carbohydrates. And as a result, they're gaining weight, gaining body fat. And the other thing is kind of weird is that the body fat develops its own system where it's actually releasing hormones on its own. This fat actually stimulates hormones and creates inflammation because that's what's really going on. It's inflammation. That's something we need to get a better handle on.
Oh, yeah. I like that you mentioned about the inflammation. I want to go back for a minute to stress. One time I wore a glucose monitor for 1 month just to see how different foods affected me. And it was very insightful information. I got to see exactly through the app system. You load in what you're eating, and then you can take a look to see if you have any blood sugar spikes from that. One time I got a spike late at night, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What happened that night? I'm not somebody who eats anything at night, but I remembered it was before my husband had woken me up and I was grumpy. And he asked me a question about something that really didn't need to be answered when you're half asleep. And I got really mad at him. And that gave me a blood sugar spike. And I was like, oh, this is why it's important to manage our stress. Stress like that can increase cortisol and give you a blood sugar spike. So it creates an insulin effect, just like eating sugar. So remember, to not get upset as much as you can.
Right.
You know, so do
That's kind of hard.
everything to prevent your stress from going really high because high blood pressure, that'll give you spikes. And as a result, you're gonna easily put weight on. So that's how I got the insight that it's not just the refined carbs and sugars, but it's really how you're managing your stress in your life that's contributing to the insulin and the amount of belly fat.
Right. Certainly, the brain is very responsive to what we're eating. So if we're eating a lot of ultra processed foods, then the body's going to crave ultra processed foods. So it's hard to break that cycle. I think that we need to be aware of what sugar, what carbs we're consuming, and somehow work with that reward center in the brain because the dopamine, they found that the sugar is even more addictive than some drugs like cocaine, which is weird that sugar is that addicting. Some things like soda and other types of fruit juices really can have an effect on our blood sugar as well as our body weight. The stress connection is huge. Terry mentioned a couple things before. I think that Terry and I have both talked about how to manage stress. We had a workshop all about that, where we talked about some of the ways that we can manage stress. We talked about manipulating or at least working with your thoughts. And we spoke about things to improve our vagal tone, whether it be through breathing, humming, or singing, or maybe a cold water plunge or splashing some cold water on your face or going into a sauna, ways that we can stimulate our vagus nerve so that we can improve our overall health, including our digestion.
Well said, Dr. Phil. I really appreciate our conversation today about this. And do you have any lasting words for our audience at this point?
I think that Terry and I have laid out some wonderful things to talk about the whole situation of belly fat and inflammation. Do the best we can with respect to trying to stabilize sugar, trying to focus on sleep, trying to manage our stress. If there's any questions about how to manage our stress, certainly you can reach out to either one or both of us in terms of the best ways that we help people to manage their stress. I feel that we've done some work with that through experience as well as some of the workshops that we've done that actually can do that. I would say pick one thing that you want to work on every single day because your body and your health is something that we need to work on every single day, not just here and there. Work on one thing every single day, get some positive wins, and always maintain a positive attitude. What about you? Do you have some words that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So, I work with my four pillars of health, and I would encourage people to take a close look at those four pillars. One is nourishing your body. How are you nourishing it with real whole food, targeted supplements, and proper hydration? Secondly, take a look at your restoration practices, your sleep and stress management. What are those like? Can you improve and going to bed at the same time, for example, every single night and commit to that? That will be helpful. The third one would be movement, making sure to schedule in regular time for cardio. Every day, I would recommend people do at least 30 minutes of fast walking, for example. And it doesn't have to be all at once. It could be 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at lunch, 10 minutes in the evening. Cardio is also connected to brain health and emotional regulation. It helps get glucose into the muscles. Then the last thing is connection. How are you at connecting with yourself, other people, nature, your higher power, your higher purpose in life? People who feel connected will also help reduce stress. Those are the four things. And if anybody's interested, I do offer a 30-day healthy gut challenge to help people focus on the nourishment piece of those four pillars. How about you, Dr. Phil? Is there anything that you have for our audience?
I think you mentioned the best way that you have different programs. Terry has her website, totalhealth.com, and you can reach me through my website at livefunctionally.com. I also have a 30-day brain gut habit program as well as a 3-month program on how to become your own doctor in terms of listening to body signals as well as working on gut health. Some of the pillars that Terry mentioned, as well as poop, which is something that not people want to talk about, but it's certainly essential to look at before you flush to get some idea what's going on. You can get in touch with one or both of us and bring your questions. And if you're not here, you're welcome to send in questions so that we're able to address these questions for our next show.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for listening and take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Take care.